May 2015, a local horticulturalist is recording himself during a routine mushroom hunt in the woods of northern Illinois. The man is startled by a strange and scary sound seemingly coming from nearby.
If you born and raised in the Pacific Northwest and you're white, go fuck yourself. You can't say y'all. I don't care if you think it's gender inclusive. Say yous, okay? Like the goddamn Yankees in New York do.
It's a long, drawn-out howl. It lasts about 9 seconds and certainly sounds like an animal of some kind. The mushroom hunter pans his camera back and forth to see if he can spot anything, but sees nothing.
I think it's time to go.
So this I would characterize as a yell or a scream, which does fit into the paradigm of the Bigfoot world. This particular vocalization has a definitive sound of aggressiveness. I would say whatever is making the sound is trying to scare this person out of its area.
You're listening to.
You're listening to.
You're listening to.
Y'all are listening to What's Left of the South.
Thank you for tuning in to What's Left of the South, a podcast about Southern working class history and current events through a leftist perspective. This podcast is brought to you by a horrible job market, testosterone levels, anxiety, living at home, aging parents, Ian Fidance telling me on Instagram that he listens to the podcast, Kaeza removing people allegedly, Nelson telling himself in the mirror it's not a codependent relationship with your mother if you're Italian, Tyler's hiatus, which will inevitably lower our listener count, Mark ghosting his therapist, and ancient aliens, because if white people couldn't build it, it had to be aliens. As always, I'm Nelson with...
And I don't have a funny opening.
We always just wait and see who's going to do it first.
It used to be a lot longer.
This is our first full episode since the rebrand, so I'll actually say it. Hi, I'm Kaeza.
And I'm Mark.
That was the smoothest. Anyway, and our guest this evening is...
Hi, I'm Josh. Darien. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
Josh. Oh, man. Y'all can't see Josh, but Josh is pretty popular on TikTok. You probably follow him and don't follow us, so it's okay. Josh is more famous than us on TikTok. So there you go. Oh man. So how's everybody doing? Yeah,
been a while since we have a full episode out, huh?
It has been a hot minute. Bunch of tragedy, but
yeah,
we're good
for the
now.
record, we were supposed to have an episode last week, but our guest had to cancel unexpectedly. So this is our first full one since we had the name change, since we had the new logo, the new intro music. It's all good.
The rebrand, everything. So Josh, congratulations.
Oh yeah, I'm number one.
Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah. Speaking of horrible job markets, I'm just trying to find better work, and it sucks. It's great being overeducated, underemployed. I fucking love it. It's great.
It's the millennial condition.
It is some fucking millennial condition. Oh man. But
and so Nelson likes to say now that Mark is Morgan Wallen coded in how they look.
How mean is that? What an awful thing to say to someone supposed to be your friend.
I didn't know you were gonna say that on the Mark, you got the hair and everything.
I'm gonna shake my head.
Last night we made the liquor.
No. We are not having this on here.
Yeah, who's more problematic? Me looking like him accidentally or Nelson knowing the words?
Whoa, that song is everywhere. Okay, the song it's so bad.
Still a racist. You don't sing a racist songs.
Damn it. That just reminded me. It was just like if you take one of those pop punk playlists and just like have to take out every single band that ever had allegations against. It's like there's no more pop punk playlists.
What a glorious day! There's no more pop punk playlists.
You say that like you did not choose the pop punk playlist on my Spotify when you were in Florida.
Yeah, Mark.
Options.
Limited options.
I'll weasel out of it. Don't worry.
Yeah, fuck my music taste.
It was sea shanties and the pop punk.
I have fucking bossa nova on there. I have classic jazz. I have Motown.
This catch is spitting. Let's go. Holy shit, Josh! This is what you got into. This is what you
this is great.
To. Oh man. So Josh, what have you been up to? Real quick, I know before we start, I know you just opened up a coffee shop in Opelika, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been real busy. I just opened up well, I didn't really open it, more so that as I took over ownership. But it's essentially like opening it up because there's a lot to go in the coffee shops. And if you're not a coffee snob, you're in the world of learning every day.
I bet.
So yeah, that's been fun. I'm a chatty patty, so I mean it's really my world anyways. Like I talk to anybody, and if you look like you're having a bad day, I'm talking to you. If you look like you don't want to talk, you're gonna talk before you leave. Like I take all those opportunities as people I need to cut down like trees. Because I don't know if y'all ever seen the people who go in the coffee shops and they're like, can I get a latte? Like, cool, yeah, you can get a latte. Like, how's your day going? What you been up to? What brought you here? And they're like, I don't know. I've just been walking. Oh, where are you walking to? Where are you walking from? Like, I'm like, you're going to talk to me. You're not going to leave this coffee shop without having a conversation.
I can feel like when we walked in there, the three of us, I could feel everyone's anxiety levels. Like, why is this guy talking to me?
No.
There's a difference between having some fucking boomer woman in front of me in the line saying, how long is this line, and expecting me to like shit on the workers of the store.
Yeah, if it's a service worker, I'll talk to you about anything.
True.
Yeah,
true.
But yeah, that's been keeping me busy. I don't sleep a lot, so yeah.
Oh gosh, and
lots of fun.
you've given us an hour of your time. We need to use this wisely.
Oh no. At this rate, I'm used to I'm running off fumes. I've been running off fumes, fumes and faith. That's pretty much the only thing getting me through. So
yeah.
So if this goes 2 hours, it just goes 2 hours.
Fuck yeah.
Right.
So everyone in the Auburn Opelika area, fuck Starbucks. Go to Josh's. What's the coffee shop called, Josh?
It's called the coffee shop.
Yeah, go to the coffee shop. Nice. Can you just
some good SEO right
your
there.
t-shirt? Can you just for like t-shirts? Can you just have in like Comic Sans the coffee shop and like a stock image of a coffee cup?
That's too millennial.
I would buy the shit.
It's gonna age.
So, I'm literally gonna make the t-shirt tomorrow.
Yeah. Fuck you, Mark. That's what you get, you Zoomer piece of shit.
You have to go and buy these shirts.
Oh, I'm totally going.
Yeah,
You Josh, you were talking about you wanted to do live music and like so. I play music too, so I was like, I know you mentioned before we start recording you do music. So yeah, I do music. So I would love to come in and sit and do a set or something with some other people at your coffee shop. They're pretty dope. I like that idea of the tiny desk stuff you were talking about. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, it's a really cool space, and it's a lot bigger than it looks. And I've already been talking with my wife about getting like a liquor license, like shutting down the shop at a certain time, maybe a little bit earlier, and then opening it back up to be kind of a smaller venue.
Hell yeah!
Because there's so much good talent, like acoustic talent.
Yeah,
too.
There really is. And that area is great.
It is, and people come down for that kind of stuff. Like they look for it in Opelika. So I'm really trying to maximize. And also, not like open up a coffee shop and then close down a coffee shop too. So
yeah,
right.
I gotta get a little creative.
There's a place here in Montgomery that does Hilltop. They have they do coffee, but they also have a liquor license and beer license. So you can get all of them. So as for people who don't want to drink, you can get coffee or tea. And if people do want to drink, you can get alcohol. And then they have like open mics and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. Definitely do that. That's pretty dope.
Yeah, mimosas are coming. I also forgot that you guys were in Montgomery.
Yeah,
well,
I'm in Montgomery.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mark is in the hills of North Georgia. Ding, 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 ding. And Kai's from Florida, but moved to the UK because she found herself a Brit, a nice British gentleman.
Way out.
Who is our producer?
Is it like 5 o'clock over there?
It is 1:30 in the morning.
Ooh.
Wait, Kai, you got to put in the context.
Oh, the context that I am an insomniac. So 1:30 in the morning is nothing to me.
Exactly.
Okay. So maybe I don't need to be the chatty patty this time.
My current falling asleep time is 6 a.m. right now. Even if I have to wake up at 9 o'clock, my current falling asleep time is 6 a.m. There's nothing I can do to change it.
You're like running up the stairs to get to bed before 6, like 5:59. You get to the top, it's 6, you just pass out and roll down the stairs. Adam's like, what the devil?
Yes, that's exactly how he speaks.
I know.
If I ever hear him say that, I'm going to ask him if he's been possessed or something. That's not how that happens.
Oh, man. But yeah, so hell yeah. Dude, we're so rusty.
Speak for yourself.
I hadn't said the intro in like a month. I hadn't said that's the new intro too. I hadn't like said an intro in over a month. I'm glad we're back. I was missing the podcast. I was missing doing this. I know we did an After Dark, but like it's cool to have a guest and do a free episode because I know people are probably like, where's the episode? The 5 people that still listen to this. But anyway, I got my Bucky's cup. I just want to let everyone know.
Oh, did you fix the top?
I did. I super glued it. So now I got toxins and water.
Nice.
Hell yeah.
Nothing like little bacteria in your water.
Oh man.
Yeah, if he comes in and asks for his drink in that cup, please do not serve him.
Yeah, it's 40 ounces of bussy. Let's go.
No. We're not doing this again.
Here we are. Look at that beaver. And they opened up one in between on 85 in between Montgomery and Auburn. I gotta go.
Yep.
My God.
Yeah, everybody
Bucky's is life.
Everybody here has been acting like they open up like a Dave and Buster's like ×2 or something. They've been going daily. I have friends who have gone every single day, and I'm like, hey, y'all, like, oh my God, relax. Okay, real quick. That just got me thinking. Okay, so this bit I do on TikTok, I have I have a playlist for it. It's wearing white culture, and like I have the 4 panels, right? I have it's Golden Corral, open mouth kissing dogs, live, laugh, love, and golf. The 5th one, I know Donald said that it was plantation homes, but I'm really starting to think that Bucky's is the 5th panel. Frog number 5.
I do need to. Bucky's transcends everything. Bucky's.
No, I do not think golf goes to Bucky's.
Bucky, but they pay really well. Like your general manager at Bucky's can make $500,000 a year.
Yeah.
And they sell
work.
Yeah.
I'm not buying it.
You're gonna wish you did work at Bucky's, but you'll get the paycheck for it though.
They'll feed you to the guy in the mascot costume. That's the real cryptid. But the thing is Bucky comes alive after they close their gas station,
and he hunts anyone left.
You better get out of there.
Like 3 a.m. Bucky comes alive and feeds.
5 nights
like, what is it, Jeepers Creepers? Every 27 months for 27th day or whatever, 27 days it feeds like Bucky's. It's the Jeepers Creepers.
A predator comes back to life.
Comes out of hibernation.
Wait, Kyle, you talk about that? Or you talk about how the director of those films
he's
a fucking predator?
Predator.
Someone needs to make that TikTok of the Jeepers Creepers thing every 27 years for 27 days. It feeds and it's Bucky. Oh man.
Yeah, when I was in Florida last, my husband, who's into it since we went the first time, we decided to drive out to Bucky's, the closest one to where I live, and it's like a 3-hour drive. So we went out there because it was a really shitty day. There was like nothing else to do. And I ended up buying a lot of stuff because I go to Florida twice a year, so I buy like a lot of the beaver. What are they actually called?
The buck nuts.
The first time we bought them, we call them beaver nuts, and that's
all
that's
nut.
in my
I know beaver. Oh no, there are beaver nuts. Beaver nuts. Yeah.
They're beaver nuggets, I think. We call them beaver nuts when we first got them. So we got a whole bunch of that, and I got like a candle that's supposed to smell like they're roasting pecans, and a whole bunch of stuff. And I had it in my carry-on bag when I was flying back, and my bag had to be searched because I had the candle in there, because apparently candles have to be tested now. And the guy who pulled my bag and searched it, like, looked me in the eye and says, "You have a lot of Bucky stuff in here." Fucking call me out while I'm in a federally restricted area. Thanks.
Oh my God. Wait, was that U.S. Customs or British Customs?
That was U.S. Do you think a Brit would understand that? No.
What is this Bucky's here? Now you got the beaver on the car.
Oh, okay. Let's get into this episode now.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about cryptids. Woo! My favorite cryptid is Mark, and Mark lives in the hills of North Georgia.
There's a lot up here.
Collecting animal remains.
Collecting animal if you leave an energy drink outside on your porch at night.
I don't do that anymore. You know that.
Yeah, after they got vitamin B poisoning.
Mark drank so many fucking energy drinks, he got vitamin B12 poisoning.
Whoa. I didn't know that was possible.
Yeah, it wasn't fun. I made my face.
Mark's like twitching and shaking, numbness in extremities. Mark's
it
just
like I was having like a fit.
Oh shit! But yeah, this is gonna be a lighthearted episode because sometimes I know we get really dark and depressing because history, especially Southern history, is dark and depressing as fuck.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about cryptids. Yay! Something that can be lighthearted and fun. Hopefully, there's nothing bad about.
I can find a way to bring it down, Nelson. Just you wait.
Mark already said that he's gonna be a wet blanket this episode.
They said I was going to not be a wet blanket. Thank you very much. Don't embarrass me in front of our guests.
So anyway, you know what? Josh, you're the guest, and you're I really enjoy your TikTok channel because you talk about cryptids and ghosts and hauntings and stuff all throughout the South. I think it's awesome. So I know that we technically chose the same cryptid, but you want to go first? You want to talk about the cryptid that I think has the best name out of all the cryptids that I at least know about. I love this name.
Yeah, it's so creative. I mean, people from Alabama are like, it's ingenious. It's genius, isn't it? It's literally
like they see it.
Yeah,
brilliant.
It's straightforward. It's blunt,
and it's phonetically like that's the thing though. It's like it's beautiful because the name is the Southern accent. Like it's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, and and you don't have to wonder what it is. I mean, you could be like, oh, what is it? But I mean, it's the Alabama white thing. Like that's it. It's a white thing. Like they don't even. And the funny thing about it, the reason why I love this cryptid so much is because it's like 3 different cryptids, and people all call it the same thing. Mm-hmm. So it's 3 different cryptids wrapped in one. Like you have the Sasquatch, like albino Sasquatch thing that you have going on, and then you have like this kangaroo hybrid thing that people also describe, and then you have like what I can only think of as like a naked mole rat and an alien put together that lives in the caves of northern Alabama, and then so that's the white thing too. And they're all like, so what'd you see? Well, I saw the white thing. Well, you kind of almost have to ask which one, because because like I said, we're so creative in Alabama. We're just like, if it kind of looks like it, it kind of is. Just it's the same way. Like if you get a Dr. Pepper, like somebody in Alabama is probably going to say, no, that's a Coke. It's the same thing, same principle for this cryptid. But I will say it is kind of fascinating in some regards because there is an actual triangle, very similar to like the triangle in Pennsylvania and the Bermuda Triangle. These things kind of happen. Their sightings kind of happen around this triangle, and it's Jefferson County, Morgan County, and Etowah County, and that's where like the biggest culmination of sightings have been of what people can describe as just a white thing. I think the parallels between other places too, and Alabama having its own cryptid that's less talked about, it's kind of cool. It makes it interesting. That's pretty much it. It's a fascinating thing to make fun of, though, for sure.
Because I had heard of it. I saw your TikTok on it, and I had heard about it before, and I just the name. The Alabama white thing, because I just like picture somebody in like the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains in North Alabama be like, man, I'm one of them dang old white things. It's like, of course, our cryptid has to be white. Like it was another. It was like it was like, but then you made a really good point about like how it is 3 different. I was reading about that how it's 3 different things, but it's all the white thing. It's like, is it an albino Bigfoot, and then the one because outside of the triangle, Huntsville, right? So they're saying it like you said, lives in the caves, and like I read something about in the sewers, and they're like, it has no eyes, it has no ears. It's like, so is this fucking is this Pennywise like in the fucking drains and whatnot? It's just like, leave it to Alabama to have like it's the 3. It's the 3 cryptids in one. It's like the Trinity of the cryptids.
Yep.
But there was but can you talk more about the triangle, because like I did not know about that, and I feel like if anyone's gonna know about it, it's you, because like I know you do a lot about cryptid stuff on TikTok, but like what is this? What is this triangle? Is it like I've never heard of it before.
I will say, just to backtrack a little bit, the funniest thing about that white thing video, and then I'll talk about the triangle.
Yeah.
The funniest thing about the white thing video, and when I reposted it again, with so many people DM'd me talking about, I mean, it's not really, that's either my Uncle Terry or it's a tweaker. And I just thought that was funny because, like, you know what people in Alabama do in the woods. There's only a couple things. I mean, one of those you can read between the lines. Yeah. The other two things are like, you know, people like to moonshine out there. And also, like, for lack of, you know, people like to be out in the woods a lot.
Yeah.
And do stuff that they probably shouldn't do in Alabama woods. So it's a very sacred place for mischief and other revelry. But
it gives the white thing a whole nother meaning. But you can see somebody tweaking out on meth, just wearing a white shirt running. That's why it's a blur. It's just some fucking dude tweaked out on meth. It's a white thing. It's just like a blur. He's running so fast.
And if you've ever seen somebody tweaking, yeah,
yeah.
They can do some supernatural things.
Meth is a hell of a drug.
But the triangle is not something that's actually that well known when it comes to Alabama. It's not something that's heavily talked about, but it is kind of deep in the cryptid lore of Alabama. And in there, you do have a lot of actual just paranormal activity in general between Jefferson and Etowah and Morgan counties. I mean, I would think some of the heavier impacts of the paranormal actually exist in the northern half of Alabama. So it's either North Alabama, you get a little bit in central, and then you get a ton of it in the south around Mobile and places like that. But Birmingham is also like a low-key, pretty spooky place overall. And you'll have people say, oh man, I've lived in Birmingham my whole life, I've never seen anything. But you know, the outskirts of Jefferson County are pretty dense and rural. And as you head north, I mean, you start going into places like Coleman, you start going in places like Kimberly, you start going up the Black Warrior River. And so you have some really dense pockets of woods where, I mean, essentially, if you were trying to hide some type of primate or some type of, animal or cryptid that needed some cover, I mean, you have so much space for that. I think some of that, if I'm not mistaken, some of that land is some of the most undiscovered land in Alabama, because you also have like the Bankhead Forest. You have Talladega National Forest, which is kind of adjacent to the Jefferson County in so many ways. You have a lot of dense pockets of woods. And in that pocket of triangle, you also have so many UFO sightings as well. So it's like, you know, it's something about those triangles where like it's cryptids, UFOs, aliens, ghosts, like they all like to hang around the same areas. And that's pretty much the highlight for that triangle.
They like triangles. But no, people don't realize how much forest is just in the South End, but also Alabama. I remember Kai mentioning one time, like Kai, you said that you didn't realize how like beautiful and natural like Alabama was. So I started posting pictures of like being in the Talladega National Forest. And like when I show our listeners in the Pacific Northwest, tree Yankees, pictures of like me out in the woods in Alabama, they're like, oh, I didn't know there were mountains in Alabama. I didn't know that it was so beautiful and forest, etc. It's like, yeah, assholes. It is naturally beautiful, but there's a lot of creepy shit. I've gone camping deep in the Talladega National Forest, and it does. I've had friends. I had a friend of mine experience some weird shit out there, and he got it on camera too. It was like green mist and green orbs, and then his dog was petrified. Like he's like the dog never gets, he's the friendliest, he's always barking at shit, and he's just a sweet dog, and he'll lick you to death and bark at you, just bark, like friendly bark, wag its tail. But when he said that, dog's name is Max, when Max, like that green fog mist stuff came over, and then my friend heard whistling, like high-pitched whistling, circling around the camp. And he said that Max hunkered down and was shaking, like shivering, and put his paws, dug his nose into the ground, and put his paws over his eyes, like he was trying to hide from something. It was like something And Max is not like a small. Max is like a decent sized like dog, and it's just like something he sensed or saw something out there that spooked the shit out of him. And my friend was spooked too because he could hear this high pitched whistling, and it sounded like it was something was going around the campsite, and it was this high. One of my friends said it was wild. Another friend said it was wild hogs. They make a high pitched whistling noise, but it was the way. Yeah, I know you're shaking. Yeah, I didn't believe it either. I was like, no, man, because like I was like, all right, whatever. And then he showed me the pictures, and you see like this green mist fog stuff show up, and it's just like it's completely out of place in the and it's not like an analog case. It's on his iPhone. And it's completely out of place. And everything was out. First, I would have been like, all right, maybe it's just the camera. But the fact that the dog, Max, like got so spooked that something was out there that was bigger than him and threatened him and was like, it was like Scooby-Doo was like, Ricky, this is not good. It was like when we found it, when someone said it was wild hogs, remember that scene from Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island where the pig is chasing Scooby-Doo? And I thought about that. It was like, it's wild hogs. But yeah, those woods are in Tuskegee National Forest too has some hauntings. There's a haunted trail.
Yep.
And that's apparently, and it goes back to like the satanic panic and devil worshiping and whatnot. But like, it's some people say there's some creepy shit out there too. But we've always talked about wanting to go trying to find Bigfoot in the Talladega National Forest. But yeah, that was my experience in Talladega National Forest.
I'll say if you go looking for Bigfoot in Talladega National Forest, you're gonna come across something. So that's something that I've actually been compiling a lot of info on. So yeah, Josh is
gonna go missing, folks.
No, not Josh Nelson. You're gonna go there and do it.
Let's go, brother. The thing is, the Bigfoot's gonna think I'm just a baby Bigfoot because I'm hairy. I just be like, I'll put on a fur coat and be like, hey, brother.
I mean, maybe, yeah.
Kai, you give me the biggest like fuck you face.
If Bigfoot is anything, Bigfoot is indigenous, and you do not pass as indigenous.
That's true. Bigfoot is indigenous. Bigfoot's just a hairy uncle.
He is probably one of mine.
But Kai. Oh yeah, it's my niece.
Don't forget. I do have an uncle that lives up in Alabama.
You're right.
However, he's not one of the big uncles. He's one of the little uncles.
That's my niece. Oh, I know your niece. Don't eat me.
It's funny that you say that because everything that you described is actually okay. So I want to preface this by saying a lot of people blame like a lot of paranormal activity on like indigenous things. They just do, and that's caused by we all know where that comes from. That's a lot of the lore that people have created over time to kind of like place lore on indigenous people. But I will say the whistling is all I needed to hear to know that whatever that was that he saw was like 100% like
don't say it.
Nah, that like maybe not 100%, but there's a high likelihood that was an indigenous known entity, and that's all I'll say. I'm not gonna say the name on here or the other name.
We tend to go with S word or W word.
Yeah.
Tyler straight up said it one time.
And I was like, shit.
Before the episode, Mark and Kyle were like, oh shit, we should probably say don't. Like, I'm glad. Yay, Josh, you did good. Yay.
Yeah.
Listeners, take after Josh. Josh is great.
Yeah, I've been in the mud with this one. I don't say that out loud, and if I do, it's like broad daylight, and I'm somewhere where I know like I'm not going to stir up anything. But yeah, it's 100. I keep saying 100% because it's like, but you see that same thing. So okay, I
didn't even think about that when he said the high pitch whistling.
Yeah, it's for one like so. There's a superstition in Black culture that you do not whistle indoors and you don't whistle outside at nighttime, like ever. And you especially don't do it when you're a woman. And it's because it's said to attract actually 3 different entities, not just the 2 that I mentioned. So there's the S, there's a W, and there's the LP. And I think I can say them, but they're miniature sized people. And so you don't like interact. And if you hear it outside, you go the other direction. You don't run, you walk. And so that's always been a superstition that's been carried, at least in my Black culture in the South, that you don't do that. And if you look at like where some of these happenings happen, it's always in places that were heavily indigenous. Like they always know. So like you think about it, like Talladega National Forest, you have Tuskegee, which was like heavily trafficked indigenous land, and you have these same superstitions popping up in places that the indigenous people inhabited. And so on top of that, my belief is also that Bigfoot is a known indigenous entity as well. And it's not something that we'll ever get to know per se, unless somebody indigenous just straight out says, here's the culture and here's our lore. Here's all the stories about this entity that we've known for thousands of years. So I've been digging really deep into cryptids to kind of figure out like where they go. So when you said the green mist and the green orbs, and I was thinking about actually Bear Creek Swamp, which is also heavily.
Damn, I wish Tyler was here. Tyler has a story about Bear Creek Swamp involving him, illicit substances, and running through there naked.
That's the white thing.
That's the other white thing. Exactly what I was Tyler the entire time. Yeah, at Bear Creek. And then funny enough, the person who my friend is actually Muskogee. He's Creek. So like that, the fact that happened then, yeah.
That checks out. So because I got chills when you said like a high pitched whistling. I was like, oh, I hope he didn't like interact or not.
No.
Yeah. And the funny thing is too, people always associate those entities with like Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, like the Southwest, the West. But no, that culture is very embedded here as well. It's just known by different names. There's also one that I looked up on accident, scared the Jesus out of me. Like I deleted all the tabs out of my phone. Like I deleted the search history, and I was like, I don't ever want to remember the name of what this is because it scared me so bad. And it's specific to the South. I would say it, but like maybe I'll like type it and send it to y'all. But I'm not like that one got me and it scared me. But it was one of those deeply rooted indigenous. Not to get sidetracked on the Alabama White thing, but that story turned the lights on in my head.
There is
terrifying.
So I'll like after Kai and Mark, after you go, there is a Cherokee legend that scares the shit out of me.
It's that one. Yeah. It's that one. I don't even want to talk about it. I'm getting chills right now.
Red rum. She scares the shit out of me because I picture Kai with that just it is like
I'm not that old.
Yeah.
But
that's
still,
the one.
I have a small little encounter of my own story. It's not as theatric as our friend's story, but it's similar, and it was scary enough for me to like have to go in my grandparents' bedroom as an adult. If that it was that kind of thing. So it was like I was coming home and it was like July. So it was like really warm outside. And the streetlights just came on and it was like weirdly just sticky just for being the South. So I have a black cat and she's indoor only unless she just shoots out and runs, but she usually doesn't go far. So I'm turning in after getting home from work, and there's a black cat sitting under like the tree right by our driveway. And it's just sitting there. It doesn't scurry off. And so I was like, I hope not, because it's by the road. So I roll my window down and I just kind of like click at her to get her attention and doesn't move. So like, this is my stupid cat. So I get out of my car. And by the time I get out of my car and go around the front to pick her up, she's sitting on the other side of the road. And I was like, okay, maybe she scooted over there real quick. So I turn my flashlight on my phone, make sure there's not any cars coming. And there's an abandoned house and woods across from my house. And she's just waiting for me. So I take a couple steps across the road, and it's not a very long distance. And by the time I checked again to see if there was a car, she was gone again. But about eye level, there was a bunch of like what looked like blue, icy, like
No.
LED Christmas lights.
No. I no.
Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, there wouldn't be Christmas lights here. And so I take my flashlight and I kind of flash it to like try to catch her eyes. And a little further, there's like animal eyes. And I was like, well, I can't walk through this. And so then I click at her again and flash it again, nothing. And so I was like, okay, I'm not going to be able to get my cat. And so then but I felt like kind of like strange, like something was watching me. And so I was like, it's outside. There's coyotes out here. There's raccoons, foxes. And so I cross the street, get in my car, pull up to my house, and I unlock the door, and my cat's sitting in my house.
No.
Get the fuck out of here.
No.
Yeah, and so I
No.
pick her up.
No.
Oh,
And she usually doesn't let me pick her up either. Like she'll try to like bite me. She just lets me scoop her up. And like, I'm like, that's so strange. And then like, I look back, I go to open the door to like peek out, like, I'll see if those Christmas lights are on. That's like weird that they're out there. Nothing. And then she like digs her nails into my like arm and doesn't want me to like, she just like clenches up. So I go back in and then I'm like, okay, that's enough of that. So yeah.
Is this just where we tell stories to spook poor Josh?
No,
like,
because that
he's
reminded me.
acting.
That reminded me of something else that happened near the Talladega
I was going to say
National Forest.
you had another experience.
So Kai, I don't want to. Do you have one you want to say before I tell?
We haven't
Josh
even gone
isn't
into our
coming
favorite one.
Oh yeah, okay. So I mean, we got plenty.
about
We
that?
got plenty. We're making good time. So Josh,
I love this.
You ready for another
because
one?
like I love it's spooky. Like this spooks me, but I love this because like I said, I've been doing so much research on cryptids over the past year that you read about stories and legends, and then you hear people like you tell stories about these legends, and you're like, okay, this is like 3 different things that I've read about, and it could be any one of them, and that's all terrifying. So it's cool, but like I'm glad it happened to not me.
Right.
Right. No, and then as soon as I was like, okay, I'm not gonna get the cat. Like
And,
I could have sworn that it was her.
And if you like
had a collar, like her collar or something similar on.
No, see, and that so like, and before you tell this story, like Nelson, so there's a legend about a wolf woman in Mobile,
the wolf woman,
so, well, so there's a lot of like, what's the best word? There's a lot of mysterious. No, what's her name? She's blue and she's an X-Men.
Mystique.
There's a lot of mystique. There's a lot of mystiques out in like those legends, because I don't even want to say like what that actually is.
That's a good way to put it.
And so I'm glad that happened to not me, because and honestly, your cat is probably the only thing that saved you that day. So thank your cat. Thank your cat. People have weird lore about black cats, but black cats are actually protectors in lore, actually. So like it's a good chance that your black cat was the only reason that like kept you like super safe and not in your home and stuff.
Yeah, when I got married over here in the UK, and especially in Irish folklore, black cat is a protector and good luck and everything. So when I got married, I was given a statue of a black cat as like a good luck charm.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What part of Alabama was this in, by the way?
Oh, where I was, this is in Northwest Georgia.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right up in the mountains,
Oh.
Yeah, the foothills of
oh yeah. Oh no. Okay. Yeah. Okay, next story.
Kai, please go as her. Please go as her for Halloween.
No, I am not courting that kind of thing. When I tell my favorite, it's not even a cryptid, it's more folklore. When I tell my favorite, you're gonna understand why. Like, I'm not courting this.
Okay, so back to the Talladega National Forest. Same friend and I posted about it on TikTok. Long story short, broke down in the truck broke down in the Talladega National Forest, and I had to hike out, and then like long story short, we got the truck out, but I drove back to I had to get a ride back to Montgomery to get my car to pick up my friend because we had to leave the truck in the woods because the Jeep that came to get us out also broke, but got out of the forest and got my friend out. And so the truck had to stay in the forest. I had to go back. I had to get my uncle to pick me up, go back to Montgomery, and then I had to drive back to Talladega National Forest. So it's 10 o'clock at night. I'm driving through for people who aren't from the South or not from rural areas, when I say the middle of bumfuck nowhere, like backcountry, hilly roads, no lights. Like I want people that are not that, because we have listeners outside the South and other countries. But like when I talk about backcountry winding hilly roads, like it is pitch black. There is nothing out here. The roads haven't been paved in over a decade. They're grayish, they're potholes, like barely you can see the yellow lines, like, and it's hilly and you don't know what's coming up over the hill. And then there's sporadic houses and trailers. And then like going back to Jeepers Creepers, like Jeepers Creepers churches that are like, the First Revival Baptist Church. And it's just like, there's no windows and it's like locked up. And it's like, all right, what the hell's in there? And it's just, you're expecting to see that like truck come behind you. Like it's the beginning of every horror story, driving these backcountry southern roads. Right. And so I got my high beams on. That's the only way you can see. Like when I tell y'all know, because we're all from the South, but like there's woods on either side, and there's no street lights. It's like you may hit some street lights if you go through some unincorporated town, like, or you go through Goodwater, you'll see like there'll be like the small town of Goodwater. Hey, the water is not good there, but like you go through these small little towns, like you may see, but for the most part, there's nothing. It's pitch black. So the only light is from my headlights, and I think I might have actually even did like a TikTok or a story or something, where I think it might have been an Instagram story where like I'm sitting at the entrance of this trailhead and I'm like, my headlights are the only lights. And I had my headlights on and I turned them off, pitch black. You cannot see I could not see my hand in front of my face. That's how dark it is outside. So I'm driving these backcountry ass roads, hilly, North Alabama, trying to get Talladega National Forest. And I distinctly remember this happened, like I'm going like 45, 50 on these backcountry roads. And what I saw happen in the span of like a few seconds, maybe like 10 seconds, maybe even less. But you have something where you see something, it's ingrained in your mind, even though it happened in just a split second. Like there's times where I thought Kai was going to kill me, and there's just a split second glance. It's just like, and it's ingrained in my head, and it's like, Kai's going to fucking kill me. But like, I'm driving, and on the left-hand side, I noticed that there's a driveway. I'm coming up. It was a bit of a straightaway before going up the hill. I noticed a driveway, and there's a trailer or something out in the distance. You can see some of the lights. But for the most part, it's the only thing that is causing any light is my headlights. And I see the driveway, and there's a little, not like a brick mailbox that could be misconstrued. It's just like a little, just stake in the ground mailbox. Next to that mailbox is the biggest fucking dog I have ever seen. And it is sitting there. And when I say it looked like one of those big ass fucking Dobermans with the pointy ears. You know what I'm talking about? Like big, but why I say it was different is because it was muscular. Like it was a big fucking, this dog had to be sitting down, had to be close to 4.5 feet tall, 5 feet. Like it was a tall fucking dog, pointy ears. And my headlights hit it. And it's, you know how you hit something that is alive when it hits the eyes, they glow over white. This dog did not. The eyes were dead black. And its face looked like it was trying to contort into what it thought a dog's face should look like. And that image is burned into my mind because I drove past it and I'm looking, and it kind of looked like like a when they blur out people's faces on TV sometimes, it kind of like a mixture of like a blur. It looked like, remember how Rorschach's face looked in fucking The Watchmen? So it's like what like shit's trying to move into place and it's blurry and it has like black dead eyes. And I'm just like, what the fuck did I just see? On top of that, on these backcountry roads, you do see a lot of stray dogs. And when my headlights would hit their faces, it would look like a normal dog. The eyes, glow white. It's just like, oh, it's like, whoa, shit, runs away. It's like, oh, you saw me. This dog sat there, did not move, did not flinch, face all contorted. And then also while I'm driving down, I see at what would be dog level out of the corner of my eye, black, solid black, darker than what is being projected from my headlights. Like what shadow would be darker than that of like shadow dogs. So I'm thinking like
that's enough out of you, Nelson.
The ghosts of dogs that had been hit by cars on those roads. Because I saw it was definitely ghost dogs, real dogs, and whatever the fuck that thing was that I passed. And it was not there when I drove back. I looked for it. It was not there.
Why would you look for it?
I'm not. I drove. I know
he's already courting danger
because I wanted. I didn't look for it. Like stop and get out and be like, oh, where did
Look,
I drove by. I am the white person in the horror movie.
To make sure a deer's not like right in your way. Do not look. Why are you looking?
I'm not looking like, oh, I didn't get out of the fucking car. Mark was like the white person in every horror movie. Gang, let's split up. I heard a noise.
No.
If I'm getting out of my car, I'm grabbing my gun and be like, all right.
There's not gonna be time for that.
I know, right? I need some fucking John Constantine holy water bullets.
I just need everybody to realize
on hand.
I just need everybody to realize that Nelson is
fuck you, Mark.
Nelson is so like unconnected to what he sees around him that Mark and I are constantly pointing. Did you see that hog? Did you see that? Did you see that in the woods? Did you hear that bird? For Nelson to recognize something, it's got to be in his face. Okay.
True. I'm oblivious. This is why I'm single. This is because I am fucking oblivious. But I didn't stop. I
should have pulled over for that dog, and you wouldn't be single anymore.
I'd be dead. Fuck you, Mark.
Your partner is a ghost dog. Okay, that's it.
Yeah, I would love like ghost dog. That'd be pretty. Or like God knows what the hell it fucking was. It was probably one of those. He should not be named.
Yeah.
I knew because I wanted to make sure it wasn't a statue. That was the thing, because people have like dog statues or whatnot.
Yeah.
And
why did you have to make sure?
I didn't, Mark. When I tell you, I didn't stop. I drove and I knew an idea where it was. And when I was driving, I just looked to see like, all right, is anything still there? All right, it's not there. Fuck, and it kept going because I'm not stopped. I'm fucking tired because I had to hike out of the like 4 miles out of these woods in my clothes that I wasn't prepared to hike in. And then on top of here's what really scares me. Cryptids, are spooky and ghosts or whatever. Where I was in the Talladega National Forest was the like right where that fucking methed up doomsday cult fucking killed that dude. Remember that story?
Wow.
Remember they were from Florida and they were the college couple driving to Tennessee and they stopped the Cheehaw. And they were roaming around. They tried to help some lady that had broke down, and she pulled a gun on him, led him in the woods. And the guy and the crazy lady drew, and she shot and killed him, and he shot and injured her. And it turned out that she was part of some methed up doomsday cult living in the woods. Yeah, that guy died like literally where I was. Like the trooper that picked me up on the side of the road that randomly was like, "Yeah, it's about where I came down here to see if anyone was hitchhiking. This is about where that crazy lady done shot that guy." I was like, oh, that's great. And then people were like, there's black bears in those woods too. It's like, oh, that's gonna be fun too.
I'm a lot of them too.
Fight a bear. Let's go. Come on, bear. Let's fucking go.
Not just black bears. There's cougars in that wood too.
Yeah, I've been
in those
fucked.
woods too.
There's only one type of cougar I like, and it's not those. And we're back.
Somebody please date him so he'll stop.
And we're back. Who needs? Like I said in the intro. I'm an Italian. Why do I need? I got my mother. It's fine.
Okay, anybody else got a story?
Mark, do you have a cryptid?
Enough. Do you have a cryptid?
Yeah, besides you, what's your favorite cryptid?
Well, like the Appalachian Mountains in general.
The whole range.
The
yeah.
whole
Whole
round
range.
range.
No, there's so much. Just like go on forever. It's the oldest.
Fuck you,
It's so
Mark.
old. What are you talking about? Are you gonna let me
About
finish?
Yeah, finish.
It's so old that there's not fossils like in it.
Hmm.
It's
Interesting.
like yeah,
Nelson doesn't understand what that means.
you don't care. You don't
I knew you were
care.
gonna do this. I knew you didn't have a
And-
cryptid. I know you didn't have a
and-
cryptid picked. I knew you.
No, listen to me. And then you're just a hater.
The problem is that he's the one who hosts the call, so we can't mute him.
Right. Well, it's just like it's so incredibly old, and there's so much culture that just overlaps with it, where everyone has the same, like, different stories of the same thing. Like that kind of evidence-based story to me makes more sense. And like instead of just, I mean, it's silly because like I don't believe in God, but like I'll believe in that. It's just, I don't know. It feels, I don't know if it's just the magnitude of like the mountains that makes me want to like, you feel it kind of like in your bones. Nelson, have you ever been to like the Appalachian Mountains? Because you're just kind of looking off in the space, like you don't get what I'm saying.
Is Talladega National Forest in Appalachian Mountains? It's the foothills, right?
Foothills. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about like
Been
in
there-
the mountains.
I've been thinking. No, I've never been in. I'm not one of those. I'm not one of those white people. It's like I feel such a connection to these mountains. It's like,
I'm not
gotcha,
gonna
Mark.
finish my story about how mystical and whimsical.
Mark,
I, think
I want
the
you to
Appalachian
finish your
Mountains
story.
are.
Connection to the land. My grandparents came over here on a boat. You're both indigenous. I'm Italian.
No, and it's just like
If you
the
talk about, did you
culture-
ever go to the Italy?
Shut up, Nelson.
no one wants to go
Shut
to
up.
Italy.
And we're
It's
back.
gonna be underwater soon.
Fuck you, Mark.
It's over and done with.
Oh my
The
god.
ship has sailed.
You're banned from the pizza parlor.
Unfortunately. No, and just like because like the things with those triangles, people say that it's like electromagnetic fields and stuff. But if you look at I can't remember what the name of like the plesiosaur type thing in the Great Lakes is.
Which one? Like you
The
mean
one,
like Champ or like Alti?
I think it's the last one because it's like I don't know if it's technically a triangle, but there's one in Georgia, one in the Great Lakes, and then there's Nessie, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And so it's
Yeah.
it's around that mountain range
Yeah.
anyway. And the mountain range used to be connected to Scotland and Ireland anyway. So it's like the entire strip of land just feels so old to me that if something was there, it would have to be there. Like even from like the classism from like feral people and in like people being like that kind of thing. If there's gonna be any kind of like species that would be a cryptid, it would have to be there in my perspective. Just from all the little places they can hide and just untouched land, it feels like that would technically be the best spot for it, just in this kind of geographic area.
I think I'm picking up what you're putting down too,
Yeah.
because when you think about the land masses being connected at one point, and you see a lot of similarities in terms of the cryptids that are on the like European side of things, and you see a big connection when you come over here on the east coast of the United States, because you do have a lot of water-based cryptids that you don't find the same water-based cryptids in, I don't know, like Arkansas or like Missouri, but you find them in Florida and Georgia. You find them in North Carolina and South Carolina. You find all of these interesting cryptid, like the lizard, the lizard man in South Carolina, like, but then you have Alti in the southern half of Georgia and Florida too. I mean, different like creature, but same thing, kind of the same sightings. And even in Florida, I mean, you see that similarity, but then you track like the Bigfoot trek through the East Coast too. And it's similar, like it's all coastal kind of states that were maybe once more coastal because the water
Receding, yeah.
it was like higher up on land. That's a good point. I didn't think about that, but yeah, I mean that's a strong point.
Yeah, because if you're gonna argue it from like a anthropology standpoint, that's where all the people were, is by water. So that's where all the creatures in the folklore is gonna be. But if you want to argue it from like a biology standpoint, then that would also be the richest part of this part of the country too. So I feel like it makes, I don't know if we're trying to be like big, like if it's just theoretical or figurative or whatever, but I think that's why I enjoy hearing stories about like haints and all this and stuff like that, is because it makes more sense to me. And so I want to listen to those stories because it's not just like, oh yeah, there's a UFO over there because it's flat and they can see where stuff is. Like, it's more interesting to have stories from over here, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And let me actually ask you, are you two indigenous?
Yeah,
Yeah, me and
I'm
Mark are.
Choctaw.
Oh, I need to like shut the hell up because I'm over here talking about
No.
in indigenous culture.
I get yelled at and told to shut up. Very fine.
No, yeah. No,
I-
you're right. So like we were just like, yeah.
I did not. I like, so that's on me. I'm over here telling y'all about y'all stuff. So let me back, like, ignore what I said and like
Just in post, we'll take what he said and like read it really monotone.
like I didn't even like, so I thought so, but like I don't assume, but I don't really like to ask people either. And so like I was in a weird conundrum, and then I heard it mentioned. I was like, wait, I'm over here telling them about their stuff and how indigenous people like do carry out.
Josh,
you're
like the nicest guest we've ever had.
So let me be quiet because I don't want to tell y'all's culture. Like that's, so I apologize. Like
Nothing to apologize for.
Yeah.
If you had gotten something wrong, we'd have a reason to talk about it. But
if you would have said, if you said the names, dun dun dun.
Yeah,
okay.
then we'd have to talk about it. But.
Okay, good. Because like I've been doing a lot of research, and like I try to keep a lot of the indigenous stuff I keep to myself in particular, just because it's like I don't know if I really want to share all that to like other people, like who are probably going to use this for nefarious purposes or be out like trying to channel stuff and like, you know, just
Mark and I were literally talking about that before we got on the call. Like,
okay.
like talking about like when it comes to the, so if I get onto mine a little bit, I don't know if, are you done, Mark?
Yeah.
Okay. So when I was looking at for my favorite cryptid, for one thing, I was looking up like cryptids in the Southeast. So my family are transplants. My family's from upstate New York because we're Iroquois. And I'm the first one that's born out in Florida. So the Southeast isn't really cool. my land. The upstate New York and Montreal is actually my land. But when I was looking at it, what came up a lot were indigenous folklore, indigenous stories that like I just grew up with knowing, you know, about these stories, about these, I don't want to say creatures because it sounds too animalistic, but a lot of times it's a mixture of human and animal and all this. So seeing them described as cryptids was kind of weird for me, because to me, cryptid is a very like specific word made by white people. If I'm gonna be honest, like white people decided that we're gonna take these things, and if we give it a scientific word, then we can talk about it separate from folklore. So seeing them described as cryptids was a little bit weird for me, but at the same time, when I was looking through this list, I was seeing a lot of things that I recognized. Being from Florida, the only one from Florida, the one that I recognized first off was skunk ape, because that's our Florida, that is Florida man right there.
He's scary he's a scary one. He's the scariest Bigfoot in the country. My
uncle has said that he's had encounters. So my uncle is somewhat feral. He lives out. They know my uncle. They know that this is true. So my uncle, like Mark, likes to pick up roadkill, given animals that have died and everything. Oftentimes processes animals for other people, and he lives out on the side of a lake, kind of at the edge of civilization and real Florida scrub. real Florida waterways and everything, kind of
Oh,
right
he's
at
seen
the
it
edge.
all. He's seen it all.
Oh, my uncle basically
seen it all.
is Skunk Ape at this point.
Yeah.
But like he's talked about the things that he's heard out in the woods, a lot of clicking, snapping, hooting. I don't even know how to describe it. All the noises that he's heard and the smell that accompanies it. But he's seen and heard a lot. But a lot of times in indigenous cultures, you're not going to say in like a very clear scientific way, this is what I saw, this is what happened, because it's storytelling, but it's also protective because you don't want to attract those things to the people that you're telling it to.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of it is kind of couched language. So in a way that I can't describe what he told me to you guys. Not because, well, one, because I don't want to entirely for the same reasons, but two, because I can't use that same language to do it. But if we're going to go by my favorite, it's got to be Deer Woman. Deer Woman is absolutely my favorite. And usually if you look in, cryptid versus folklore, she would fall into folklore as opposed to cryptid. But there are some listings that have her down as a cryptid. So she is talked about in the Haudenosaunee areas, with my people, the Iroquois, which is around the Great Lakes, up from the Great Lakes to Montreal, that sort of northern area.
Oh no.
And she's also talked about in the Southwest.
He froze for a bit. It's like, oh no.
A beautiful. Did you? Okay.
No, you're good now. You're good.
I said that she's from the Great Lakes to Montreal is where she's talked about, and also in the Southwest. And she's usually a beautiful young woman who looks normal, except that her feet are deer feet. And sometimes she's portrayed as having deer antlers as well. But the most common way is that she's a woman with deer feet. She's standing on two legs, and she can show up at your socials, your powwows, your dances, and shows up. Nobody recognizes her, nobody notices her, and she disappears as soon as the drumming stops. But she likes to dance with people. But most of her story is that she appears to people. If you are a woman or a child, she's kind to you. If you're a man who is good to women, she's kind to you. But if you are a man who is abusive towards women and children, she will curse you, she will harm you. And when she's being kind, she's a symbol of prosperity and fertility, and otherwise she takes out abusive men. So she's absolutely my favorite. And from my own territory, because I don't really know much about the cryptids down in Florida except for Skunk Ape and weird things that have been experienced by my family. Because again, my uncle lives where I was talking about, at the edge of civilization and real Florida swamp. But also my grandparents lived in the Ocala National Forest for a very long time. And mostly what I heard about the Ocala National Forest is that it was full of racists who would fuck up anybody that they wanted to. The reason that my family managed to live out there for so long is because they were afraid of my family. But that things that mimicked bears is what I heard of most of out there. And I don't know how else to describe this, because again, this is not a story that I ever heard put a name to it, that the Ocala National Forest has bear shapeshifters or anything like that, but that black bears are what mostly you would see, and you would know that that's not a real black bear when you see it. So yeah, there's my favorites.
It's like the dog I saw. I was like, I knew that shit was not a dog.
Yeah, Florida has some scary cryptids. Like I did the story on the skunk ape, and I like didn't even share all the information that I got, but like that one's a scary one. And like, researchers have tried to they've tried to science it away and say, oh, in the mid 20th century, they were traveling circuses and orangutans got out, and now they're the predecessor, they're the descendants of the orangutans and stuff. But like the height and weight characteristics don't match, for one. And number two, like the Seminole tribes had stories, like OG stories going back about the skunk ape, which is also terrifying. And then on top of that, like they said that they're not only carnivorous, but they're like cannibals too, which is also terrifying, and that they attack people, which is terrifying. Like it's probably the most aggressive, quote unquote, Bigfoot like creature in the country. And it's just, living the Bigfoot dream in Florida. Just, I mean, what a perfect place for it, though. I mean,
if you're going to be aggressive and terrifying, you're going to be it in Florida.
Yeah, I read some stories that literally made my skin like just come off my body. I was like, there's some. So whatever your uncle is seeing, I don't even have to hear it. I believe him. There's some stuff out there that like even I was like, I'm reading the story, and like normally I'm pretty skeptical when I read Bigfoot stories, but there's some stories that had me like, oh no, like y'all definitely. And it's the thing about the skunk ape too, not to go on off on a tangent about the skunk ape, but
please seriously. Like I said, we have been off the air like for like a month dealing with personal stuff, so we need a long good episode. So let's rant all you want.
Well, this is right up my alley. The thing about him the entity that scares me the most about it is that it doesn't care if you're by yourself. It doesn't care if it's daylight. It doesn't care if it's nighttime. It doesn't care if you're in a group of 20. Like he'll pop up and just be like, I'm here. So either, what are you going to do about it? And it's the only cryptid that's really like not scared of anything. And I find that unsettling a little bit. Like he just pops up, like hunters will be like, yeah, we were camping and he like showed up. So we abandoned our camp. Like, or he jumped on our car and was just like hanging out and then decided he was just done. Like that, the apathy that this thing carries is what's scary to me, because that means that, for one, that feels more realistic towards an animal that's seen a lot of people or is used to people in that capacity, but also that it knows it's the baddest thing in the woods too. So it kind of takes on a different feel than like the Alabama white thing, which is like, you might see it at a river maybe, or you might like, see it on the tree line kind of, or you might think you saw something. But this one's like, I will show my entire self to you. I will knock, I'll throw sticks, I'll throw stuff, I'll grab you, like, so yeah. So like I said, and the fact that your uncle lives on the edge of civilization too, makes me believe him as well, because it said that they like really popped out when they started developing Florida in the heavy forested areas too. So yeah, but knowing the thing about Ocala National Forest, I'm never going there. So
yeah, you shouldn't absolutely. If you are not a straight white person, you shouldn't be there anyway. And then you've got the spooky shit on top of it.
Central Florida's people think Alabama's bad. No, go to Central Florida and just stay there for 30 minutes. It's way worse than anything you'll get in Alabama. Well, no.
I would argue it's North Florida, Central Florida. Well, Ocala is kind of the entry to North Florida. It's the entry between North and Central Florida. Ocala, no, absolutely not. Anybody who's listening, please do not. That's it.
Period.
End of story.
We drove through going to Crystal River, which another place that I don't know if I was necessarily supposed to be around. That's another story for another day. We drove through Ocala, and it definitely has that feel where it's like, yeah, I don't know if y'all have left 1950.
Yeah.
52.
I think I've told this on the show before, but there's a big, really, really tall bridge that goes between the National Forest side and the town of Ocala.
Yeah.
And it takes you up into the treetops, kind of. It's really fun to be up there. However, that bridge kind of separates the forest side from the town side. And it used to be said that since my grandparents lived there, they bought the property in the 80s, I think, that specifically if Black people crossed the bridge during the day, they did not return at night. And it was the kind of area where the KKK were literally just out there. They would hang lawn jockeys from the trees to like warn people. And like I said, the only reason that they didn't fuck with my family is because they were too afraid. Because I have 5 very large indigenous uncles, and we got guns coming out the ears. So they were afraid to fuck with my family.
Not only will you get shot, they're afraid they're going to get cursed.
Yeah. It didn't stop. A lot of people who were really close to the house didn't like outwardly do violence, but it didn't stop them from threatening it. And there was a lot of times that, again, it's the forest, so you're used to hunters and everything, but you would hear noises and think, is that coming to this? They lived in a double wide trailers. Is that coming to this trailer? Because you'd hear it getting closer, and where the house was not a hunting area, even though it was in the forest. So yeah, scary place to be. If you're white, you might survive it. If you're not, please don't.
Well, you know what? This is really good to know, because my wife and I, before we knew anything about anything, I know exactly what bridge you're talking about. And we were just having the time of our lives driving over, like, oh, look at how high we are in the trees.
Yeah.
So this is good to know. Well, I'm just gonna.
Yeah, we're just gonna have to just skip Florida for a while.
Yeah.
Is that also the area where the monkeys are?
Yeah, down in Silver Springs, right on the other side of the bridge. Actually,
the herpes monkey. Oh, the chlamydia monkeys, the herpes monkeys.
I don't know what sexually transmitted diseases they have, but
I don't know their personal history.
So
there's like an outbreak or something. I know chlamydia, I think, was the koalas. I think the herpes is the monkeys.
It's the monkeys, because and the only reason why I know this is because right outside of that bridge, we said, oh, hey, there might be monkeys in these trees. Let's get out at this park. So we really didn't know anything about anything, because we were just traveling. I think we're coming from Orlando, actually, not Crystal River. And so we like to stop at all the brown signs. But now, like, because we stopped and they were like, this is a canoe area. You can get out, you can get your kayak in the water, like you can travel up. And we were just out there just willy-nilly. Like, we were the only people out there who looked like us, but like we weren't thinking about that kind of stuff. But now, like, I don't know, my ancestors were like looking out for us, because we were out for a long time.
You probably stopped off at Silver Springs, which is right over the other side of the bridge. Silver Springs it's out in the open, so you'd be more okay hanging out there. Once you get into the woods, it's really bad. When you're in the town, they pretend that they're not racist. The town is, but it's very much that, little southern town where you can feel it kind of coming off the buildings.
Fucking
no disrespect.
Klansmen and herpes monkeys.
No disrespect to Coleman, but like that's
man, fuck Coleman.
Basically Coleman, Alabama.
I literally drove. I was going up with the same friend that all this spooky shit happens to. Went up to Ohio because he bought a truck, and I was riding up there with him, and we had to stop in Coleman to get gas.
Ugh.
And I was just like, I took an Instagram story picture. It was like, in Coleman, if you know, you know. And it's just like,
Yeah.
Someone was like,
Really?
you're white, you'll be fine. I was like, yeah, but man, still fuck this place.
Yeah.
I felt getting gas in Blue Ridge before I was going up to Tennessee.
It's like fucking Forsyth County in Georgia too.
I got so many stories about North Georgia, and my wife and I having to travel through North Georgia. Yeah, there's some places up there that we were like, I was like, we have to get gas. This is a travel stop. Get in, don't make eye contact. Get in, get out. Let's get in the car. Let's go. If we're thirsty, we'll get drinks in 2 hours. Like, that's how it was. Like, also, no disrespect to any North Georgia listeners, but it's kind of long story short. I'm actually going to tell a really short story. So we stayed in Dahlonega one time because we had to shoot a wedding. We had to shoot a wedding. We had to.
Wait, what county is that in?
Is
that Georgia?
I don't know.
It's not Forsyth, but it's not Forsyth County. Everyone knows about Forsyth County. Okay.
What county is that?
Hold on. Let me get my little.
We didn't stay long. We didn't.
No, I feel you.
But no, like so I didn't want to go, but we were at that time we were like full-time photographers. We were shooting weddings all over the place. We didn't really care as travel, but yeah, Dahlonega is not a place I will ever go to again to stay ever. Because the second we stepped foot out of there and went and got gas, I was like, yeah, I don't know if we belong here. These people do not look like they like us being here. And that's kind of the experience we had. So I was like, yeah, remind me to never go back to Dahlonega. So yeah, that's the short story. I mean, it's very anticlimactic, but the long story short is, Dahlonega felt very much like Coleman to me, and I just was not comfortable the entire time I was there.
I also want to throw in a side note for all of our Yankee listeners that we could talk about this because we're all Southerners. If you try to say some shit, go fuck yourself. Fix your own places before you come
Yeah, this
talking
is my
shit.
state and my region.
You want to know some shit? Real quick for just some context. Like, I'm born and raised, growing up in Alabama. Like, we all know, passing the fucking Confederate flag up to Birmingham as Sons of Confederacy bullshit. And like, we all know about Coleman, Forsyth County. We all know about our own local areas. I used to work at a summer camp in the Catskill Mountains in New York, right? 2 hours north of the city. Okay. When I tell you, I saw more Trump signs and more Confederate flags in fucking like Jeffersonville and Liberty, New York, than I ever did around here. I'm not joking. I was like, wait a minute. What the fuck is there a Confederate flag? So like, when like it's a whole thing about like on the podcast is like we make fun of the Pacific Northwest and Yankees in general, et cetera. It's just like we talk about this because we born and raised here. We know it affects us. But like, shut up, Boston. Ask your parents what they were doing in the 70s when they try to integrate your schools. Yeah.
I just really quick aside out of the cryptid thing, but I have to talk about this because it's been a while since we recorded. I went to a living history event here in England right after I came back. And it's at this site where they save historic buildings, but they take them apart piece by piece and they move them to this park and reconstruct them. There's one in Florida, there's a few around. But it was at this place and it was mostly, you know, like there was a Viking encampment, there was Tudors, there were World War II, World War I, there were like there's like a 1930s kitchen and everything. It was a really interesting event with all these like living history reenactors. However, as soon as I walked in, I heard what I knew was Confederate chants. Knew it. And then right in front of the building that I walked out of, which was a like 17th century guild hall, like incredible building that I walked out of, like 40 fucking British people cosplaying as Confederate soldiers. Exactly. Like walked across the front and they were heading towards a battlefield where they were going to battle with like Union soldiers. But I need to stress that this is in England. The Vikings lived in England at some point. Like the Tudors lived in England. Like all this stuff happened in England, except for these fucking American Civil War reenactors, and why 40 people would put that much time, energy, money into making their uniforms, learning the old tunes. Like, because what I recognized, I can't tell you exactly which one it was because I was so angry that I saw red. One of the songs they were singing was one of the ones that I remember when I was in school. We got like a whole bunch of music that said like this is like one of the Confederate like songs that they would sing when they were marching, and I recognized it as soon as I walked. So they had to find that and learn it. and you don't have this much effort in your learning and your costume and everything, and only do this once a year. So what I couldn't even conceive of it. I was so blind with
it's alternative.
I immediately took a video and sent it to the group chat and like I can't fucking escape no matter where I go.
It's fucking alternative history where like the British joined the Confederacy. Oh my god. That's
if you want to talk about fucking ghosts and cryptids, there's probably a lot of ghosts in that area. None of them were American Confederate fucking soldiers.
Yeah. You're lost, buddy. Holy shit.
Use the Outlander playbook.
Yeah.
Speaking of ghosts, did Nelson, you said that we were going to talk about ghosts too, right? Because that's the only experience I have is with ghosts.
I don't know. We can talk about ghosts. We can talk about ghosts. I do have a question for everybody. Because I haven't read his book, and I know there's a bunch of controversy about the 411 dude. Like apparently he like embellished a lot of things in his book that comes out later, like basically lied about a lot of shit. But and then like people talk about it on TikTok. This is one like annoying dude on TikTok
Mr.
that talk.
Ballin. But
You also look like him too, Mark. You also look like Mr. Ballin too.
it's the white jeans. I'm sorry.
But no, it's like one of those like white dudes that's like really anyway that like is more annoying than me and has like the glasses and gets like really like makes this like his entire personality about like it's the underground caves and blah 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 blah.
There's freaking hundreds of those people, man. You're gonna be more specific.
I know, right? This guy's he looks like how do I put it? If they came out, if he said that he like was into like Wiccan and is also a racist, like I wouldn't. Like,
That is the same thing.
God damn it!
If you say they're Wiccan, they're already racist.
He looks like one of those dudes that's way too into Vikings. It's like so like, oh, they're just runes. I was like, nah, dude, like you calm the fuck down. But like talking about like the cave system and how these cryptids like live in the caves and they come out of the caves and grab people in the national forest and pull them into the caves. And if you do like overlap like the cave system with disappearances and cryptid sightings or whatever, it does. There is some, causation, correlation, etc. But like, I don't know. What do you guys think about? You guys seem more in tune with this stuff than I do. So like about this cave system that do we think that Bigfoot lives in the caves and comes out of the cave with his buddies and does stuff?
I'm 6 feet tall and I can barely fit in half the caves that I go visit. So
I figured it was something like that. Yeah.
I don't, there's this whole underground world theory. I struggle with that one only because I just struggle with that one. I'm not going to break down why I struggle with it. It's pretty straightforward. Like, I just don't see how people could sustain life, or anything could sustain life living underground. So I think that it sometimes ties into that. Like, no, I don't buy it. I think that if there's anything coming out of a cave, it's like a wild animal. There's tons of cougars and bears and bobcats and
oh my.
There's so much stuff that live in caves or make caves their homes or just happen to be in caves. Like if you look at the patterns of animals in general, like they're going to find a cave somewhere. They're going to be in a hole somewhere during some part of the day. So like I think it's just ironic. More
and they
than
don't really
anything.
talk about this. You brought up a really good point about the size of the caves. Like some of them are very small. Like this big ass Bigfoot that's supposed to be like 10, 12 feet tall is not going to be straight down to 3 feet and crawl in this little tiny cave. Like how big are these caves? I never really thought about that. That a lot of them are not really that big.
Yeah, especially like the natural caves too, the ones that haven't been tampered with. If you go to like Ruby Falls or you go to like the caves in Asheville or even South Dakota or anything like that, like they tell you, hey, we had to like make these caves so much bigger than they were. Like this guy was on his belly for 3 miles just to, get to this main chamber. So like it, and even then those main chambers are like not even that big. So in my opinion, also not to rant and ramble on and on, I just don't really feel like if any like a Bigfoot or like, a D-man is out there and also don't say him either. I just for personal reasons. I don't think of Bigfoot or him as like roaming in the caves. Like I feel like they're better suited like out and about, snatching people and stuff.
I second that because there's one where it's like Cades Cove, which is in the Smoky Mountains, and I've been there. And you know what else is there? Bears. And they said that this guy wearing this big, heavy coat like took this kid and they never found him. Like, I'm sorry, man, but your kid got eaten by a bear. Like, it's not a big man, like a feral man living in the woods stealing your children.
Yeah.
It's you're outside in a rural place and you weren't watching your kid.
Yeah.
Like, it's
with the picnic
awful,
basket.
but it's like,
yeah,
because that's like a big one in like that book. But like, there's so many, like, especially like once the Yankees found out about Dollywood.
Damn, Yankees.
Like, you can't drive through Gatlinburg anymore. It's like bumper to bumper. So you're telling me there's feral people there, and they're stealing people's kids, and no one's seen it now that like everyone's there with their iPhone? No, it's just like an animal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say also that for many large ape species, pretty much all the gray apes, if we're going with it, this is a lost member of our collective family tree. Most of them do not favor living in caves. They favor woodland. They favor open spaces. And if we look at any stories of Sasquatch, Bigfoot, skunk ape, all of these, they're in woodlands or on the edge of woodlands, where you would expect to see a large ape already. So them settling in caves does not make a whole lot of sense if we're going on a biological standpoint and a thought biological standpoint.
We're going to treat this like a real science here.
Yeah. All right, so I have another question that I don't have an answer to, because Josh, you brought up a good point that there's specific things in Black culture, especially in the South, when it comes to these entities. And then Kai and Mark brought up a good point that there's folklore and cryptids, and what was folklore, and then white people got a hold of it and it turned into cryptids in indigenous culture. So I have a question for y'all three, because as the Yakubian white devil, when our father made us in his image.
Nelson,
that's my favorite fucking thing. I love that shit.
Please.
Okay. Here's the question. No,
I just got to stop you. I've never heard anybody say that out loud.
I made a TikTok about it.
I came across that word, honestly, God, 3 months ago, and I was just like, it's right there, y'all. Like, you want to
I love it.
If you want to reverse the fortune, just start using that one. But but no. So I just had to point out that you were the first person I've ever heard say that outside of one episode of Shameless. One.
There's this dude on TikTok. Have you seen him? This guy is a Black guy, and he has a really big head, and he's like, if you been knew it, I done knew it, and et cetera, because his heads, they call him, forgot what that cartoon character was, the evil mad scientist with the big brain.
Megamind?
Yeah, he's trying to say he's Megamind. He's like, if you done knew it, I did knew it, a bit knew. And people were stitching him, and I stitched him. I said, Yakub, Father, you've come back for your people, the Albinoids, to save us. Please tell me what you want me to do. And his shit blew up. But okay, in my moment of clarity, because of the preference what I said about Black culture in the South, indigenous culture, about folklore, cryptids, I pose this. And it's probably a no-brainer, but I'm looking at the one that we talked about earlier, SF, that we're not going to say. She seems like, just from skimming the Wikipedia article that I remember reading before, was a warning for children not to wander too far into the woods, and then is now, like, through folklore and tradition, an entity. How many of these creatures do we think came from, it's probably obvious, but like came from like a lesson, or like how many of them do we actually think could be like an undiscovered or a lost, like Bigfoot being like an ape creature that just, people knew about, but then, now it's like a cryptid, or dinosaurs, or whatever you want to say. Like, how many of these things do we think are real, and then how many of them were a warning that turned in, because of legend and folklore, into something that we perceive as being real? Does that make sense?
I'll say this. I think that's a double-parted, or like a double-edged sword, because I do think that thought forms are like real things. You can go through some creepypastas and go through and see like how just the sheer magnitude of people giving energy to something actually created entities that latched on to that image, whether or not they physically created that, or whether or not that entity just latched on to that. It's a whole, like, that's up for debate. So I do think thought forms are real, and you can actually create, you can add energy to something that's already energy and create something that has movement and being. On the other side, and this is, once again, I'm only speaking off the research that I've done. I am not an indigenous culture expert, but I do think that some of these do come in the form of lessons, because I can think of two cryptids that I can think of right now, and one's Hug and Molly in Albertville, which is basically like, hey y'all, don't go out on the streets, or Hug and Molly's gonna get you and snatch you up and hug you real tight and scare the devil at you. Well, that was a made up story to keep kids from being out in the downtown area, hanging out. No, it's Abbeville, not Albertville. It's Abbeville. And hanging out in their downtown area, causing trouble and mischief. And then there's another one that I think of, which is an indigenous legend right here by the Uchi Creek, where there was this thing called the tie snake. And where this tie snake lived, the water is very like turbulent. It has some very strong undercurrents, and it has an underwater cave system as well. And so from what I've researched, once again, the stories were that they kept this legend alive because it was very dangerous to not know your way around the water. So if you were to get in the water and you were to take a misstep, well, you could actually get sucked under into the water, into the current, and not be seen again, because now based on like the landscaping that people have done in that area, the underwater cave system would pull you under and you would just be trapped there. But in turn, that took on a cryptid legend of its own with a tie snake, a really big constrictor like snake that lives in the water, that could swallow a deer. It was pulling people under all the time, and you just didn't hang around the water. And so it's one of those things where it's like, I personally am not embedded in that culture, so I can't say no, there's no such thing as any large constrictor type snake that existed here. But on the other hand, this is another like thousands-year-old legend, so I can't say for sure that there wasn't actually something that was a giant snake, because we do have mosasaur fossils being found all over Alabama all the time. So I can't say that there wasn't some giant reptile that lived in this area, despite us not seeing it anymore, that did do exactly that. So I think it's kind of a double-edged. So it's hard to tell what is real and what isn't, and what is just more of a life lesson and what is an actual creature, in my opinion.
I agree with that 100%. Because it's like some of it, we didn't really talk about, like, I think it's interesting, the like really religious people also being really superstitious. Like that.
Yeah.
Like, because you would think that like that would like be polar opposite, with like the hanging the horseshoe upside down, putting the broom a certain way, like don't sweep under people's feet. You think that would be, I mean, it is technically witchcraft or whatever, if you want to give like a name to it, because you're speaking, like you said, that energy into it and giving it power to change like your luck, your life, whatever. But I think it's like also a little bit of both, like you were saying, where it's like, okay, well, these kids aren't really going to understand this big concept of danger. So if I make it like, oh, it's a big scary monster that's going to get you, it's easier to keep your kids in line. And whether it's someone who isn't from that culture hearing it and be like, oh, I haven't seen that, but you guys are from around here, so it must be in there somewhere. Or if it's just the imagination of people making it and changing it, like telephone, like adding something here, taking something there. I think it's a little bit of both.
I'll start this by saying that a lot of indigenous people talk about walking in two worlds, that we have our own understanding of the world, our own religion, our own folklore and everything, and then the colonized world that we are forced to function in. So we kind of have two forms of thinking. So that's what I'm going to go with on here. If we go in the colonized world, where I was a psychology student and interested in folklore since my first memories being that I was interested in mythology, et cetera, that humans think best. Our brains latch onto the concept of stories rather than facts. When we tell a story, it's easier to retain that information. We can tell it on ourselves. And if I were to tell you a story, you would understand it better, and you could disseminate that information a lot easier than if I sat here and told you the facts of X, Y, and Z. So going off of that humans like to think in stories and that it works best with our brains. Of course, there's going to be a lot of stories that are built out of, we don't understand how this works, so we're going to build a story around it because we heard this bit here and this bit here, and we're going to stitch that together into a story that becomes a cryptid. It becomes an animal. It becomes a woman who visits your fireside and dances and you never notice her. It becomes all of these things because we're kind of stitching together things that we don't quite understand. All it takes is one person being at a dance in New Mexico, 800 years ago, and seeing a woman there that they don't recognize and who disappeared over the course of the evening, for that to become a story for them. And then there's also the part that human brains are really, really good at making humans out of things, making images and sounds and what we feel like is intention. We turn that into a human. It's almost first nature, not even second nature. It's almost first nature that things like matrixing, we can turn a scattered bunch of pixels into a face really easily. It's how our brains work. And it's not, a negative or a positive. It just happens. So there's a lot that, like, the human brain is so amazing at forming these things that it's so easy to look at. We hear what we feel like is a pattern of sounds in the woods and decided that has intention behind it. And what has intention is spirit. What has intention is human. So yes, we can absolutely kind of form these things into folklore. We can, like Josh and Mark said, that we can make these stories that help to control people, control behavior, so that it gives them a shelf to put that unknown on. Now, if I flip that and go into like the indigenous side, I can acknowledge that there's a certain amount of these things that are going to be stories told in the dark to make sure that your kids behave, to make sure that the men in your tribe don't mistreat women, to make sure of all these social things that they're used to cobble together. But at the same time, there's other things that are just how the world was formed, how this animal came to be this way. That's my earliest memories are of storytelling from my mom that kind of grew into how I started storytelling as a child, explaining why this animal is the way it is, as opposed to other animals. And that doesn't mean that it's not real in some way. That if you tell like the Danae story of creation, that it's a underworld that had an ant fall into it, and that there's sky, that there's Father Sky and Mother Earth, and they created the world this way, that doesn't mean that those entities don't exist. And I'm not willing to, especially as myself with a platform, I'm not willing to even consider saying that, oh, well, that's just folklore or anything like that. Because when I say that, I give space for non-Indigenous people to say, well, oh, well, she says it doesn't exist, so I'm going to say it doesn't exist, and therefore I'm going to strip you of your religion, of your storytelling, and of the space that you've created in your own world. So I'm never going to say that things like skunk ape don't exist, that deer woman doesn't exist, that corn maiden doesn't exist, that spider woman, that coyote in the storytelling sense, not the actual animals, that these things don't exist, regardless of my inner thoughts, of my feelings, because I'm not going to give anybody that space.
Kai, you just
Right?
named off like the most kick-ass indigenous Marvel universe ever.
I mean, the stories are so much more like when it comes to cryptids, there's shit that can, like Josh was saying, that can, tingle the skin right off your body.
SF just scares the shit out of me. I'm never going to North Carolina.
Like there's so many things that I remember listening to my mom's tapes of storytelling, that it's this kind of dream world where they're talking about Coyote doing X, Y, and Z human things, but that doesn't mean that Coyote was a human, that it's this kind of mixture of the world that you can't stick a pin in and say, well, they're talking about an actual anatomical coyote or an actual person named Coyote. You can't even describe it at that point. And it has stories that explains how the world works. It has stories to explain how to behave in society. It has stories to explain why such and such is created. And it gives so much color to it. It gives so much color and breadth to what you believe. He's gone.
No, I hear you. I'm stop. No, I'm just like, apparently her arch nemesis killed her. So she doesn't haunt the.
Explain. You don't have to use the name, but explain what this is so that people understand, and it's not just, I don't know.
So apparently, I'll say his name because he doesn't sound as scary. He's just a random dude.
Are you sure about that?
Oh yeah, you're right. So apparently, SM there's SF who's the woman and SM who's the man, and apparently, they had he also eats livers.
You have to explain, Nelson. Explain.
All right, so SF is a Cherokee legend that lived in the eastern side of Tennessee and western parts of North Carolina. I'm not going to try to pronounce the Cherokee term. The one with the anyway refers to it. I don't even want to say the body part. On sometimes. Oh my God, hold on.
Wonderful, clear picture painted for the audience.
One with pointed spear. Okay, so her sharp finger is said to bear on her forearm, on her right hand. It's like a spear, like a knife, and it'll cut you up, and she'll eat your liver. And besides that, she also can change forms into the family members of her child victims, which goes back to talk about like a folklore of like telling kids, hey, don't go in the fucking woods, especially at night, kids, or this lady's gonna fucking kill you. So that kind of like brought about the question, but apparently her enemy is a dude that's also like her, and they fought. Anyway, just go look it up on Wikipedia because I'm not even
like
gonna.
Harley Quinn and the Joker.
Exactly. Shut the fuck up.
I have a question, since we have Josh here, and we were talking about the similarities and differences between Black culture and folklore and Indigenous culture and folklore. Do you think it's a mistake that a lot of times the advice given for dealing with any of these scary occurrences is almost exactly the same between both cultures? And also including that a lot of times those cultures mixed, especially in the Southeast. So the oral history could be shared between them, but also that if you separate them, it's still the same advice almost every time.
Not a chance. I think that this is true for multiple reasons. I think for one, yes, because I think Black and Indigenous culture mixed so often that like even if one person was Black or one person was Indigenous, you would still carry those cultural lines into your family as it went downwards. But on top of that, I also think that Black and Indigenous people in the Americas had to navigate the world similarly, not necessarily the same, but similarly. So they always had to be hyper aware of their surroundings and hyper aware of what's actually happening in society and hyper aware of how they go about interacting with not just the public, but the private as well. And I think with the intermingling that happened and the similarities in that regard, I think that folklore does cross over, because I did not know until I started actually doing this research last year that the whistling thing was something that was shared. Like I didn't know that. But I only knew that because my grandma would always say it, and I'd always ask her, like, well, why can't I whistle? What's wrong with whistling? And she never really knew. But we also allegedly, because I did my DNA and I don't have a single drop of any of any indigenous blood in me except in like South America. It's also been said that people in our family like were indigenous, and so I can't really verify that because, like I said, I've done 2 separate DNA tests from 2 separate companies, and both of them said you're a liar, and whoever told you that is also a liar.
I'll give this much so that I don't call your granny a liar, but that it's entirely possible that your families could have been side by side rather than actually intermixed.
Yeah, and that's and that's what I'm thinking. So especially in Black culture, we also claim family members sometimes because we're so close. But so there's people like, oh yeah, that was my grandma's sister. When in reality, that could have just been, well, that my grandma would say that was my grandma's sister, just to differentiate it. That it wasn't like that close. And so something in like the 1700s, like, yeah, that was my grandma would say that was my grandma's sister. They hung out all the time. They grew up together. That could have just been like a familial friend that, because also sharing the same land, you depend on each other. And so I'm also rambling to say this. I'm a rambler, y'all. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
I do think that there's definitely no coincidence that indigenous culture and Black culture, even if Black culture can't necessarily describe why we believe some of the things that we do, intertwines with indigenous culture. Because what I also find fascinating is that I like Haitian and African lore sometimes also intertwines with native indigenous lore, despite them being on 2 separate continents, which has also made me kind of do some more deep diving into like, okay, what is the foundation of their the religions, and like why is that? Because I haven't found a correlation between those 2 things. Because I did a superstitions thing, and you're right, Mark, about like how like I would say Christians more than anybody are more superstitious than any other group of people. And they believe in more of these superstitions than people who didn't grow up Christian at all. But I had separate people say, oh, this is like an indigenous, this is the indigenous people believe in this. And then I'd see people say like, okay, well, my African ancestors believe in this. And this is what my grandma who is from Africa told me. So I've never found that correlation as to why that's true, but I do find it very interesting and coincidental. I feel like maybe like way back in the day, there was some like language, or like not language, but knowledge sharing that happened. Because you can find like evidence of Africans traveling well before Europeans ever decided to come over to this side of the country or this side of the Americas. But there's no real record of like what they were doing over here and why they were traveling on boat and like what was going on. But and also similarities in architecture that you can find in Africa and indigenous culture, but also in South America. And there's a whole thing. That's a rabbit hole that I'm not going to go down.
No, but it's I feel you. I honestly do believe that it was Mansa Musa of the Mali Empire. I really think that he did sail over with people.
Oh, you know about him, do you?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
It was him. Yeah, he and then he left the empire to a relative, and I really do believe.
And he stayed here, right?
Yeah, and he stayed in South America. Yeah, I think he had his fleet because he's the richest. He was literally the richest man in the world. Apparently, it's he gave away so much gold on his pilgrimage to Mecca that it caused inflation. Like he almost collapsed entire economies because he had so much gold and gave so much gold to people on his pilgrimage from present day from Mali to Mecca that he basically almost bankrupted entire economies because of inflation, just giving out so much gold. But
I'm so surprised you know about him because I came across him. Like people don't know about this man, and like it's kind of like it's like fringe history kind of, but nonetheless it's only fringe history because there's not a significant amount of like research done.
Yeah.
But like once again, you're one of the first people to talk about something that I've kept to myself.
Yeah. My fucking my in the derogatory term, literal pillaging ancestors were like, hey man, that guy's got a lot of fucking gold. Let's go down there. But no, I know of Mansa Musa in the Mali Empire, and I've heard the story of him going and I think coming back, and then or he sent, I forgot the entire thing, but at one point he was like
sent people back.
That was it. And then he went and he left his empire, gave up the throne and gave it to a family member or something, and is like, I'm going to this land over here because this shit's pretty cool. So, and he left. And then there's stories of South American tribes like coming into contact with dark-skinned men before Cortez and all those other Spanish assholes and Columbus came over and fucked everything up. That there are stories of there were black men on boats that came over and they were cool. These white devils from Yakub were not cool. They were fucking assholes and they smelled like shit. But these black dudes are pretty cool. And you know, they stayed and then married in and then et cetera. But like, I think there's some legitimacy to, because he was so wealthy and had the technology and the boats and everything, that I really do think that at least some of people from the Mali Empire, Mansa Musa, came over to South America. Totally off track from the cryptids.
and I'll say that too, like on that same note, like, and he wasn't the only person who was like said to like have come over here. Like this was said to be like a heavy trading, like back and forth, like that was a thing. But I also find it interesting that because you never hear anything about like black people, and you never hear anything about like indigenous tribes ever really, like you don't hear anything like black people didn't come over here and be like, yeah, like, you know,
this is ours now.
You hear a lot about intermingling. And so to answer your question even further, now that I'm like the wheels are turning, maybe there's some similarities because that relationship was already built, and maybe there was some sharing of cultures from both sides. And so as, you know, different lineages went down different paths, you know, you did have like when, you know, the enslaved came over here, maybe there was a little bit more, they were maybe a little bit more forthcoming with the enslaved as they lived in similar places, and, you know, eventually were freed, where there was more inclination to share some of that culture. Because a lot of this black culture I know comes from like enslaved culture. And so, you know, it's, man, that's a really interesting thought. I need to do some research in that. That has my head spinning, because I didn't even make that correlation like before this conversation, that there's the similarities between that. And there's actual like things that they can point to, but like my grandma could never explain any of this. She could just said, this is what we believe and that's what it is. But like, it seems like y'all kind of have the extra, like, this is why you really don't whistle, as opposed to like, just don't do it.
Yeah. I feel like I'm sorry, Mark. I feel like it might come to like you're sharing information because you're living side by side, and in some cases actually intermingling, especially like in the case of the Seminole and the Muskogee, like the Muskogee that left the 5 civilized tribes, all that stuff that we've covered in the past. But actual intermingling and everything, that when you are in a situation where if you are actually like seeing lights in the woods, or you hear whistling or something like that, that it is just genuinely down to, we have tried so many ways to deal with this, and the only way that actually fixes it is if you don't pay attention to what it is. If you hear something saying your name, you don't acknowledge it, that you move away, that you don't look at it directly, like all of these things that it's just, you know, we have both lived this, and this is how to fix it. You know?
Yeah. And also, I said y'all, and I'm trying. I don't mean like it's whatever. I'm sorry.
Look, we're all from the South. We use y'all for any size.
Yeah.
I use it so commonly in my grouping. I realize that it could come off a different way, and I don't want y'all to. There I go again. You know what? Never mind.
No,
it is part of our language.
Yes.
We can say it. That's our word. Fuck you, Yankees. You can't say that shit.
Nelson has
damn it.
exactly
If
one
you-
reason to fuck off with other white people,
Yeah.
and it's that he's from the South. That's,
Fuck
the
you.
only
That's
thing
all
he's
I got. You are not allowed to say y'all unless you've had
Or
this or ain't unless you are one. If you're BIPOC from the South, or if you're a white person and you've had to sit through god awful family fucking dinners hearing your racist uncles talk about and dads talking about bullshit. Okay, those are the only two group of people that can say y'all. If you born and raised in the Pacific Northwest and you're white, go fuck yourself. You can't say y'all. I don't care if you think you're inclusive. Say yous, okay, like the goddamn Yankees in New York do.
Or Chicago.
Yeah,
Use-alls.
use. My mom.
Use guys.
I say that as my mom is from New York, but she would make fun of people that say use. It's like it's not how you say it, blah blah blah. Because they're from her family was uppity Italians. They were the rich Italians. So anyway, but yeah, it's you can't say y'all unless you're from here. And if you're not, you best go and get.
Mark, are you gonna say something?
Well, I was just thinking of like how I was like we're talking about how the white people getting a hold of like the Wiccan stuff. And I was just thinking about all those like there was like a lady on TikTok throwing coyote bones, and then there was like a lady making like hot foot powder with her matted hair and stuff. It's like you people don't listen.
Y'all, oh my god. All right, okay. May I I'm gonna say something real quick to my fellow Yakubians, right? We have a culture, okay? We have find out where I have said this on many fucking episodes. Find out where your family's from and learn about that shit. You probably have, you could be Scottish. Go find out whatever the eating haggis and shit, or God forbid you're Irish or whatever. But as someone whose family direct line from southern Italy and Sicily, I was like, I wonder what some cool, shit. I found like really rich cultural folklore and stories and dances and traditions and really cool shit. And that's pretty dope. And I have a cultural tie to that. I would like to learn more about that. I would like to even learn the language, right? So white people, stop matting your hair. Unless, you know what? Just don't fucking do it. Okay? The Vikings didn't even fucking do it. So stop your hair. Take a bath. Take a bath. As I've said this on multiple episodes, my people tried to civilize y'all. Okay? We built you bathhouses. We built you roads and bridges and school and everything, right? All through Europe. And you mother goddamn Germans fucked that shit up. Okay? Granted, as Kai pointed out, the bathhouses were at some point gross, and we did fuck in them. So, but we tried. Okay, yeah, roads, bridges, and bathhouses, and olive oil and culture. We tried to civilize you people, and then those goddamn Germans across the Rhine had to go fuck everything up. Okay, we tried, y'all. For the rest of the world, we tried to civilize these Yakubian savages, and they fucked it all up. Okay. And then they didn't take baths for like 1,000 years. And then the Moors taught them how to bathe. And thank you, North Africans, for teaching white people and for teaching us how to bathe. We tried.
I love how you've been poked and prodded so much about these different topics that you went through that I can like trace your line of thought every time. Like every turn, like there's like a damn like heading you off.
Thank you, Arabs and North
going.
Africans, for teaching white people how to bathe again after my people tried.
They probably got it from
math.
Carthage as well, which was in North Africa.
And math. Yeah, you know what? And thank
math.
you for math. The concept of zero, algebra, the algorithm. Appreciate that.
Abacuses, all that good stuff.
Abacuses, everything, right?
I think I said that right.
Yeah.
We Romans, we had pasta, and we had pizza and a pasta and ravioli. we had really good roads.
What Romans had was fermented fish sauce and wine.
Yeah, fuck yeah, we did.
and bread dildos.
And we had.
Do I have to talk about the bread
First
dildos
off,
again?
we had roads. We had really good aqueducts, and we had working toilets. And these fucking
you stared at each other across from.
And these fucking German motherfuckers ruined it.
Nelson, take a deep breath so that we don't have to scare our guests.
We had
touching armored boots at the
we
Community
had
toilet.
these fucking Germans. We had a primitive steam engine. We were on the precipice
Nelson, for the
of
love of
changing
God.
the world, and those fucking
He's held
savage
this in for like
Germans.
2 months. He's just gonna keep going.
I have not been able to do this. Goddamn
Mr. Speaker,
Germans.
please mute him.
Point is, white people, your hair doesn't dread naturally. Stop doing it.
Speaking of locks in strange places, we
This is like a Facebook page.
why,
Holy shit! That would be fucking Josh. You gotta do a playlist on TikTok
locks in strange places. I actually might do that because I'm not gonna lie to you. There's 2 places that I saw locks on interesting people. Number 1 was Salt Lake City, Utah.
Oh,
I've
boy.
never seen so many people who did not look like me wearing locks. And then good old Colorado Springs.
Oh God.
It's like maybe that is like a cultural thing there, but it just shocked me because there's so few of me in both of those places that I could not understand, like, of all the hair choices, like, what you just like, you know what? I'm gonna make up the rest of the percentage that aren't here. I'm gonna do that for me.
I'm gonna be the representation now.
I'm gonna do that for me, for y'all.
Massa Musa.
It was so jarring to go to the zoo or go walk downtown and just be like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No lie. Within a 2-hour span, I counted 10 separate people who did not know each other wearing locks. And that was, yeah, it was strange. And it did not look good. Let me just point
I mean,
that
that
out.
goes without saying.
Yeah.
But my God, I did not know that was like a thing over there. But you move to new places and you live and you learn.
When you first started that, I was picturing the first image my brain got was like, hello, would you like to talk about Jesus Christ with like the like, I was just like, that seems like the worst case scenario. Just mind your own business here, knock at your door. Would you like this free book?
Would you like to hear about Joseph Smith and he's wearing fucking locks? I had to stop calling them dread-your-eyes locks, but like fucking, it's just, I could picture that just Mormon showing up in the black tie, white shirt with locks. They're like, would you like to hear about our racist church? Because
This
black
man
people
who said he could read Egyptian gold tablets from inside his hat.
By the way, we didn't let black people enter the church until the 1970s. You want to join? We believe that you're cursed with black skin for remaining neutral in the war between God and the devil. Here you go.
You want to talk about the connection between indigenous people and black people? It's that.
The Mormons.
It's that we were the sinful Lamanites, I think. So we were cursed with dark skin because we were on the wrong side.
No,
not me. My dad's genes are way too strong for me.
What was that movie that there was the white indigenous tribe that were the Israel, and then like the other ones like killed. I had some fucking.
I don't even know.
Is that one that we watched on stream one time?
That shit's fucking wild.
It's probably something Charlton Heston. I bet. Had to be Charlton Heston.
Holy shit.
Had to be. That was a deep cut, I know, but it had to be Charlton Heston.
The moral of the story is that there's European hairstyles that look pretty cool that we could rock. My hair fell out, so I can't. But I'm just saying, there's some cool braids. There's some other shit that we can do as fellow as Yakubians. But like, there's some cool shit that we can do. The swoop.
We can't do it. We can't fade our hair and swoop it over. Like, we can't do it. That's a cool hairstyle. I would want it.
You might want to, for my fellow Caucasians, we might want to hold off on like that high and tight thing. It looks cool, but a crazy angry mustache man kind of made that. It's same with the runes and shit. Let's calm the fuck down with that shit, man. Like, calm down.
Moral of the story is, don't take stuff from other people's cultures.
Yes. Don't be a Nazi.
Yes.
All right, y'all. Do we have any because holy shit,
Honorable mentions?
we have been going for a while. But good. I'm glad we got a long episode because people have been waiting for a while. Do we have any honorable mentions? Do we have anything else we want to throw in?
I do like Mothman. Not the Tumblr version of Mothman, but I do like Mothman.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. He's
Do we
pretty
have
cool.
any-
Good harbinger
Yeah.
of doom.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, he didn't actually do nothing. He just shows up and something's
just
gonna
shows
happen.
up.
He's misunderstood.
Hey.
He's like, hey,
clapping around, hitting the
I'm
lamp.
I'm not going to tell you what's going to happen, but like, be alert for the next couple of
Yeah.
days. Like, you know,
Exactly.
Why, really?
maybe you cut yourself with a can opener. You know, maybe,
Yeah.
you know,
Maybe your bridge collapses.
maybe you twist your
Uh-oh.
ankle and fall off the bridge. Like, who knows? But I'm here and I warned you, so don't say I didn't do it.
Yeah, he could have stayed silent. So
Yeah, I tried. Give me some beans. My favorite cryptid, besides the Alabama White thing, would have to be happiness. Damn it! Come on, that was funny.
right. Oh, sad.
I said this is somebody who is 2 years older than you. You just feel so much squishier than me when it comes to millennial stuff.
Oh man.
Who's the wet blanket now?
Still you. I can still picture you as the wet blanket.
Mark's favorite cryptid is the wet blanket with a little
Womp,
face
womp,
on it.
womp.
It's like a little ghost.
Oh man. We got any okay, so Kai.
What?
I don't know. Do you have one? I don't want to just cut you off before.
Let's hit you with the Wampus cat.
Hey, Wampus
That's
cat.
always good.
The Wampin stick. Oh man. Josh, you got any honorable mentions before we
Cryptids.
that wolf lady in Mobile is pretty dope. That'd probably be
Yeah,
my
she-
second favorite one, Alabama.
The Wampus cat is pretty cool. The infamous Alabama Black Panther that everybody's seen that nobody can see. And I think last but not least is what I call the biggest troll in the cryptid community ever, the Macaulay Mbembe, or the Macaulay Mbembe, and which is basically like a giant, like basically a brontosaurus with a tooth that's with one tooth, that was never confirmed, and that the Native African people were just kind of like, yeah, it exists. It also has one tooth too. And people were like, what, really? Oh, hell yeah. And so now it's a cryptid that's like so unbelievable that it exists and there's no evidence of it, that it's in like the cryptid lore. Like, if y'all got a chance, like just go look it up and just read about it. And then think about me saying that it's the biggest troll in the cryptid community of all time. And then go reread it in that context, and you're going to enjoy every story that you hear about it.
Nice.
Hell yeah.
It's good stuff.
Hell yeah. Josh, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah. You can find me barely posting these days at Joshua Darien. That's Dairien. I do a lot of stuff. I have like 12 jobs, and so my social takes a hit, but I will talk to you. So if you message me, I probably will get back to you, probably on Instagram more than TikTok or Facebook.
You have
or
a link tree?
Twitter. Yeah. Well, it's a website. It's
Okay.
basically, it's joshuadarien.com, and like it has all my socials on there too.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Send me a link to that. Email me a link to that, and I'll put it in the show notes and people can find you there.
Okay. I need
And
to
then
update it too.
Hell yeah. And then again, the
Real
coffee
bad.
shop. Tell us hours, operation, downtown
Yeah.
Opelika, or
Come see me hanging out in our boutique windows, pretending to do my other job, between 7 and 4 Monday through Friday, and 10 and 4 on Saturday. It's a good time. Coffee shop, 122 South 8th Street in Opelika, Alabama. We're in the downtown area. It's pretty special, because little, on my soapbox, but people like me weren't really allowed in the Opelika area for a long period of time, and it really wasn't a safe space. And not even like 500 feet away from my shop is where they used to lynch Black people, not to get all somber. So it's really cool to be able to reclaim a space in the downtown area and do something cool for the community, in a place where I wouldn't have been welcomed even like 100 years ago.
fuck yeah.
So it's really cool. It's really special. So yeah, come get some coffee, and I'll tell you about some ghost stories, and
Hell yeah.
not tell you this story anymore, because that's really sad. They came out way sadder than I thought it would. It's supposed to be inspiring, but it kind of took a turn.
Definitely
so come see me.
Definitely want to have you back on. I think the next we'll have you back on and we'll talk about specifically, we can all talk about Southern ghost stories. Because I know we all read 13 Alabama Ghosts and Jeffrey and 13 Mississippi Ghosts and Jeffrey. And Kyle, I don't know if they had, and Mario, I don't know if they had Georgia and Florida ones, but we all know those spooky ass fucking stories with the really disturbing cover that scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. But yeah, we'll definitely do ghost stories next time. We'll definitely have you back on, Josh. Really appreciate it.
Literally call me anytime. I will make time when I can, and hopefully like my computers won't be acting like two like jerkheads. And,
no, the mic, when you get the mic and headphone, like you sounded good without it, but like with it, top notch, fucking great.
Yeah, well, yeah, and this was great. This was so fun. I didn't realize we'd been on for like 2 hours.
Fuck yeah.
So yeah, anytime y'all want me back, like I'll come on.
Hell yeah.
Like,
yeah.
No questions asked. No
ghost
strings.
stories. Ooh. All right. At What's Left of the South, we believe the South will rise again, but this time for the right reasons, those being worker-owned means of production, decolonization, and self-determination for all oppressed peoples. Make sure to click on the link tree in the show notes to find all of our social media. Shout out to our new Patreon subscribers, Jacob, Reverend Doc Tex, Jack, and Lauren. Our producer is Mr. Speaker. Our theme music is by the band The Last Thing You Remember, edited by Psychotic Refuge. We are coming to you from the birthplace of civil rights movement, Montgomery, Alabama, as well as sweet Georgia and jolly old England. We also like to recognize we're recording on land that is occupied and rightfully belongs to the Muskogee Nation and the Muskogee Nation and the Cherokee Nation. I haven't done that in a while. Mark. Morgan Wallen.
The blanket never.
Mr. Ballin. What do we got about the blanket?
The blanket never helped.